All right, I guess we'll get started. My name is Azure McFarlane. I'm a senior consultant at Hitachi Solutions. I am one of those folks in the Power Platform community who was a citizen developer turned now developer. My background's in manufacturing in pharmaceuticals, and I transitioned into tech last year, technically into consulting. And so I'm joined here by my wonderful friend Meron, and she can introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here next to my wonderful mentor, Azure. My name is Meron. I migrated to the USA in 2017 summer. I usually say I'm the product of the Microsoft community. I have been mentored, empowered, and supported by the community. So to be where I am today, you all did something. So I just want to talk about it and encourage people and like, so to encourage everyone. So to see the fruit of mentorship and keep mentoring, keep giving back to the community. So you can see how wonderful it is to see the work of Azure and many other people, how it is wonderful it is to mentor and give back to the community.
And I feel like Meron doesn't give herself enough credit because she's also doing mentorship as well. And at this point, I feel like our relationship is more, it's a friendship now. I mean, Meron can reach out to me whenever she would like, but there's also this transition into just call me up, girl, text me, it's fine. But yeah, I think Meron said that she's a product of the Power Platform community. I mean, I am too. When you're getting introduced into tech, you need people who are going to be there to give you that little bit of guidance or advice. So whether it's an official like relationship and you've set out, steps to really have an official mentorship with somebody, or it's a little bit more casual, I can call up friends and ask for advice. It works that way too. All right. Meron, where do you want to take the conversation?
For me, it's whether it's the mentors or the mentees. I always say take the initiative to do the introduction. I always reach out to people to say, hey, there is a lot I want to learn from you. Will you be my mentor? For me, it was the pandemic. I say it's a blessing in disguise for me to see Azure, a person who looks like me, for her to put the hairband, uh, taking in control, seeing her speak eloquently, and I reached out to her to say, will you be my mentor? And she was willingly taking me under her wing and teaching me as a mentee to reach out and be guided and supported. Also, the Power Platform School, meeting Will McLendon, Liz from TechFluent, and many others. I met a lot of Microsoft community members who were willing. Kati Moyam, a senior program manager from Microsoft, who was running women IT pro calls every month. She always reach out to say, hey, what are you reading? The community is very powerful and willing to give back and empower people. Always, when you see people in need, don't wait till they raise and say, I'm lost. If you feel like you can contribute or you can help someone, feel free to reach out to say, hey, I see that you are struggling. I can help. Because mentorship is it's not something, someone to reach out. You can also reach out and say, I can help you, because it's not only technical. I have a struggle to speak in public. If you see me, let's say right now I'm speaking in public, if you see I can improve my presentation skill, don't wait till to my next presentation. You can reach out and say, hey, Meron, I saw your presentation. I can see where I can help you do a better presentation next time. Let's connect. 30 minutes, 15 minutes, you can help me improve. Mentorship is not only technical, it can be a life skill as well. So do the introduction as a mentee and mentor. You can do the introduction as well. So it's always, we always talk about it with Azure. Mentorship is a two-way street. As much as you can give, you can receive as well. So it's an awesome relationship. The empowerment, you can get the friendship, you can get afterward. Is the rewarding is a lifetime. For me, the relationship I get out of it, every day I live with gratitude. Every time I wake up, I came by myself, lonely, lost, but today I'm rich. I have so many friends, and I'm profoundly grateful.
Yeah, just to like reverse a little bit, I don't think we actually said how we got connected. So I started teaching with Power Platform School, which is a community upskilling initiative for folks in the Black and Asian communities to get upskilled into Power Platform, also get coaching for, the live skills, the job skills, and job placement as well. So I got involved in this back in 2021, one of the two. And actually, Alex, who is also on this call, helps with the UK side. So I was with the first US cohort teaching Power Automate, and Meron was one of my first students. So she was in the first cohort with me, and she decided to reach out. We encouraged the students, if there's anybody who kind of strikes your fancy during the program, reach out to them. And I think the first year that we didn't quite have the mentor, like official mentee mentor kind of relationships or any coaching. So she reached out to me and was like, can you help? Like, what next do I need to do? And Meron has a storied history in tech, from when she was in Ethiopia, when she came over, right, having to start over and learn some new skills. I think it's always really helpful to have somebody guide you. And quite frankly, I never saw myself as a mentor per se. I kind of fell into this and didn't really realize what this was until it was like, oh, okay, I think this is mentorship. But like Meron said, like having that representation in tech is very important. And I didn't really see anybody who looked like me either. So when I got asked to help with Power Platform School, I was like, yes, this is great. I'd love to help, techies, and didn't realize my impact as well on the students there. Because Meron has mentioned before that, in their group chat, they're like, wow, this is the first time we've seen somebody who looks like us, who is teaching us, and who has paved like a way to, get into tech. And at that time, I wasn't working in consulting. I wasn't working in a tech role. I was just somebody who really, really enjoyed working with Power Automate and was probably playing in it a little too much around my company. But, that's how I got started in wanting to help others get that, foundational understanding and see where I could help them. So it's morphed into something more than I thought it would be. But it's been a really, really great journey to see those who I'm working with grow, because I also work with a group called Textilers. They are now an official nonprofit in Nigeria, but that's where I did my first public demo outside of work in 2020, got involved in that group. So I'm helping, women in various places to also feel confident in their skills, Power Platform or otherwise, to grow into something in tech. And I think one thing with mentorship, right, Meron said, it's not just the technical skills, it's the life skills, it's the advice. I think the biggest thing that I've noticed in terms of mentorship is all these women are smart. All the folks that we help, they're smart. They're incredible. Meron runs also her own nonprofit geared towards helping immigrants get skills and training in Power Platform, which I'll let her speak to, so I won't steal her story. But we have folks who are, new graduates. We have folks who are, they've been in their career for a while. We have folks who are airline pilots, or they're starting over, or whatever their scenario is. Like, everybody is capable and they have the aptitude to learn. I found that usually like the building the confidence and the yeah, really building confidence in people and inspiring them to see that, hey, you can do this too with support is kind of where I feel like my role has been. Because I'm like, you know how to learn. I can help guide you, but you're smart already, right? So nobody's coming in and they're starting at zero with no knowledge of anything. All the life skills that they have, all the job skills that they've had, or skills that they're taking from being a student have all been super applicable. So I feel like my role in the backseat, people are like, thank you so much for your help. I'm like, all I did was say, you can do this. How can I help you get there? Which I think is a really big piece. That's my marker for success, I would say, at this point with seeing mentees grow is being confident enough to go apply for that job or to do that speaking event, whether it's at a user group or apply for that conference. And, if you need me to help you write your abstract or review your slides, like that's my goal. Usually everybody's very self-motivated and they want to learn and they want to do a good job. So it's just being like, you can do this. And the next time you might need my hand a little bit less to this is really what I see has been a really big indicator of like success for me. So maybe this is time for Meron to talk about what she's doing, growing from a mentee, right? When you were in Ethiopia, you were working in tech. And why don't you give people a little bit of background about your history in tech when you were in Ethiopia?
Back home in Ethiopia, I was wearing a different hat. I used to own my own business. I used to own an international business. I was supplying educational equipment through international competitive bidding to Ethiopian government, to universities and technical through World Bank, IMF for 14 years. So technically I was a CEO of a big multi-million-dollar company. I left that and become an immigrant, and I have to start from zero. And it was not easy, but I'm glad I did, because when I had the resources, the money, I was now working on myself. It was until I become an immigrant, I didn't understand. I needed this. I came with a different software. Now I upgraded my thought process. My mind is now I updated the software. It's the mentality. When I don't have the resource, the time, but I updated myself. Giving back and mentorship, really, the mentality, the change I see in myself, the growth mentality is awesome. For me, this Meron I like more. I become a better mother, a better community member, and to be able to help this 140 more people is awesome. I really like the person or the version I got, the new Meron. I like it more. The tip I got for mentors or the mentees is, as a tip, is to be interested and curious more. We need to be interested to help others and to learn more and change others more, right? If you are not interested or give it back to or change or like Azure said, if you are not like we said, when I'm speaking right now, when I'm bubble or if I'm struggling to speak in public, if you are not interested to help, or if you are not interested on changing in someone's life, you can ignore that, right? But if you want me to spread the good news, or if you want to say, hey, Meron's story might change someone's life and make a difference on somebody's life, I want to help her to speak eloquently next time. So I want to help. That's interest. That's curiosity to add. Then you might reach out and say, want to help, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have that kind of interest, there's no way you can help somebody else.
Yeah,
That's
Meron's
kind of.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say the example where you've used, if you're walking around with untied shoes, you
Yeah.
can, right? That's been when Meron's talked about mentorship before, she's like, she would walk around with untied shoes and see if anybody notices, right? And somebody can point out like, your shoes are untied. Do you know how to tie your shoes? Do you want help learning to tie your shoes? And that's how mentorship can be, like she's saying, to reach out if you notice something. You can give that feedback and ask if people want that in the first place. Because some people are like, no, and there are some people who are like, I'm fine by myself. It's okay. And you leave it be. But if they're like, oh yeah, actually, I don't know how to tie my shoes, or I've been wearing Velcro sneakers, my whole life kind of thing. This is new to me. How can I learn how to do something differently? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I thought that was always a very great example of making it more a little bit more familiar, about tying your shoes, just making it very simple.
Yep, that's yeah, triggering someone's interest or curiosity in order to get engaged. And also when someone is trying, let's say I reached out to Alex when the first time I really want to pay back to the community. I reached out to him and I said, hey, Alex, Will was the one who triggered the interest. He said, Meron, you keep referring the skilled immigrants. Why don't you start your own community? You already have the resource. You have so many mentors. I want you to meet Alex. And when I met Alex, honestly, it's not because he's here. I tell to everyone, he's genuinely an honest and humble person I ever met in my life. And I reached out to him and I said, I need help. And he created the WhatsApp group just like his, just like the UK group. And he was part of our group, and he was there from day one. And we created the group. We did everything together. And Pathfinder's Power Platform community is we started it as to help the Ethiopian anyone actually to join the group. But when you start something or when you reach out to someone, make sure that you specify what you can offer. Don't stretch yourself. If you specify what you can offer, I have mentors due to my interest. Since I don't have grounded yet, I my certification is a lot. My area of interest is high, but when you mentor, specify your area of interest for your mentorship. If you want to help people, specify. If you want to help them with life skill, this is what I can help you. If they say Power Automate, yeah, I know someone, I can help you connect with Azure. If they want to learn about something else, that's not my area of expertise, but let me find someone who can help you. If they are coming into different, don't try to stretch yourself high. If they are not communicative enough, make sure that they are respectful to your time. Because what I tell to mentors is, your mentee or mentors need to be very communicative. Communication is key. Anybody can give you money, but when someone is giving you their time, time is a priceless asset. If somebody gives you, like if somebody gives me like $100, they can come up with any kind of excuse. They can say, that's my Starbucks money. That's something, right? Because that's a replaceable asset. But time, that's something they cannot replace. That's they could have spent it anywhere in the world, but they choose to spend it with you. And that shows you that you are worthy. So when somebody is giving you their time, we need to be respectful, whether it's a mentee or a mentor. So if they are not showing you respect as a mentor or a mentee, please just make sure one time is okay, but the second time, make sure you drop them or you let them know. Because my mentors or mentees can tell you, the first day I will let them know time is precious. And that's why I let them know. I think Sarah raised her hand.
Yeah, I was just interested while you're talking about time. I'm interested in how you manage that, because there's a lot going on and there's a lot of people, and this community is growing, and the more visible you guys are, and you must get approached by a lot of people. So when setting expectations on where your skill set is, do you also do that with time and how much you've got to allocate?
Yeah, I do. Just this morning, I had somebody in my inbox who was like, "Hey," they're very direct, right? Meron was like, "Make sure you're telling people what you want and or need." And I remember Scott Hanselman he's given a few talks on mentorship too. But I remember going to a Twitter space of his, or X space, last year before, where he's like, "Yeah, you're competing with why." Convince me why I should be your mentor, because I could be spending that time with my family. And so having to put in those boundaries as to where you're putting your time is very important. So I had somebody reach out to me this morning asking for mentorship, and they're looking to go into Power Platform admin and governance. And that's not my area of expertise. So I had to say, let me get back to you. I don't have the capacity right now to take on anybody else, but let me find you somebody else who can. And so I've just been reaching into WhatsApp and my Twitter DMs and everything to see if there's anybody who has the bandwidth to do this. So stretching ourselves then, because life is busy. I mean, when I got into Power Platform, I wasn't partnered, didn't have children. My responsibility was, I can goof off as much as I want in the community and help other people. And then now it's, okay, well, I have to take care of myself and my home, and make time for friends and family. And so I have decided, like, for me, I have a max number of mentees I can take on at any given time. And I'm not taking on anybody new at this point, but I'm happy to refer people, because I can say I want to give 5 hours of my time per week for my mentees. 5 hours is still a lot of time, given we work 8+ hours a day. If you have to commute to and from home, I mean, my commute's like to the kitchen, but it still plays into how much can you give of yourself, and also be able to still restore yourself enough to be productive, to be relaxed, to be able to give of yourself to other people. So I'd say it's a delicate balance for me, and mine has been 2023 is, at this point in time, I'm not taking on anybody else. I can help do referrals. I've got a couple of group chats. Alex is part of one of these too, and I'll reach in and say, hey, does anybody have any experience in Power Platform admin? Or I found somebody and they're like, I'm not like an advanced. I was like, but this is great. Can I hand them off to you? And then I'll refer them to somebody a little bit more seasoned. Does that work? And usually people are open to that idea. But if I get just like a hi in my inbox, I'm like, you have to give me more than that. Because we get so many requests, and every day it's something new. Can I have a chat? Can I do this? That time starts to add up if somebody wants even 30 minutes of your time, So you have to like kind of decide, is this worth my time at this point? If there are resources I can point somebody to, I'm likely to say, why don't you start here? And then if this doesn't satisfy, come back. But like the young woman today was like, I want to go into admin. And she already has she works in PMO, and she's a certified business analyst, right? She's got some foundations there. I'm like, okay, I think I'm not the person to tackle this. Let me hand you off to somebody else. So determining like if people are looking for a lot of hand holding, or if they've just not, I think that Google is a very good resource too. Like, where have you started? Where have you tried to get some answers from first? Because if it's just, nothing, then it's like, okay, I'm going to send you in this direction. If this doesn't work, come back. And then if they've given me what they need, then I can either help them, point them in a direction, or find somebody else who might be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good approach, actually, because even just those messages that are coming to and from in the day, in the evenings, the weekends, you know, you have to manage your time with those as well, don't you? Because that can in itself get overwhelming. And there's a lot of content out there that people can do their own research in as well. So I suppose looking for that level of commitment initially is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, I had somebody reach out to me over Thanksgiving. They're like, I know it's your Thanksgiving holiday, but, and then proceeded with their request. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna touch this. And I answered a few days later, and it's like, it was my holidays. And I had been very clear, like in this chat that I was in when somebody reached out, I was like, I will be unavailable for this weekend. You know, and the fact that they prefaced it with, I know it's your holiday, but, and I was like, you know what, it's the but, right? I was like, this is going to be my boundary of, I'm helping people almost every day at this point. I'm going to take some time off to take a nap on the couch. So
yeah, good for you. Yeah, no, thank you for that. I was interested to hear your take on it. John, did you have your hand up a minute ago? Sorry.
I did. So hi, yeah, how you doing? You're okay.
Sorry, what was that, John? I didn't hear that.
Hello. I was saying hello first. When does like a mentor and mentee relationship end, and does it, or does it kind of evolve into what you've got obviously with Meron, but you know, maybe it doesn't always follow that path, right?
Yeah, I'd say that's correct. I have folks who need help for a finite amount of time, and that's kind of it, and that's okay too. I tend to, especially with like the women that I'm working with, there's generally an ongoing kind of relationship at this point. And it may not be that we're meeting now every week for an hour, every other week for an hour to talk about something. It's just as needed, they'll reach out. But even my mentees, I had one reach out this morning. She's like, hey, I miss you. Can we talk this weekend? And I was like, yes, we can talk this weekend. We can make some time. So it depends. If you want to be the kind of person where your relationship, you say, I can commit 6 months to this, you know, I think that's okay to put in for yourself, because that will allow you to, if you want to take some time off, you can. If you want to take on additional mentees, you can, you know, at the end of that time. So I think it's really up to you to decide how you want to have a relationship with people. I've found generally, like I had somebody this morning tag me in a LinkedIn post and say, hey, I passed my certification, you know, thanks to so-and-so and so-and-so, and mentioned me. And they were like, I think I've got it from here. And I was like, okay, if you need anything, you know, you can reach out, but if you don't, I won't push this any further. But I leave that door open for people to come back to if they would like. So that's the way that I approach it. But if you want to have, it's, you know, you transition from a regular cadence check-in to, why don't we do every 3 months or as needed? I think that's appropriate as well.
For me, I have 3 kind of mentors. I have one mentor. We have been meeting every Sunday, and we have been working on Microsoft security. I have another mentor. We work on Microsoft Intune for 2 years, and then we transition to friends. I have Chris Gill. We work on Microsoft Intune for a year, and now we are friends, and we speak in conferences together. And we have mentors like Azure, and I have transitioned many more than 20 mentors who help me do more than 16 Microsoft certifications. And we just check in, who check my blogs. I write blogs and send them to them, check them, and like, so we have different mentorship relationships.
Yeah, I think
It
there are
depends
different.
on you.
Yeah. Like I've had people reach out, like I've had some newer MVPs reach out to me and are asking, how do I get into some of these bigger conferences? And so my mentorship at this point is, why don't you send me your abstract? Why don't we review this? Here's my formula for writing, you know, an abstract, making a good one. And why don't you take a stab at it to see if you can do it? If not, we can set some time aside to actually do this. So it depends on where people are in their journey, but this person has my number and they can reach out at any time, but they're like, can I actually set some time with you to do X? So yeah, some of them are a little bit more regular of a cadence. If you want to learn technical skills, some of them I kind of feel like when we get into the technical skills where you want to sit down and have some time with somebody, it's more coaching than I'd say mentoring per se. If you have that. So I know, I don't know if anybody knows of Danny Thompson. He's a dev in the community who also did career transition a while ago, but he has for himself, he gets so many requests for mentorship or coaching. He's actually put in, you have to put a little bit of a fee up front, $5, $10, put your money where your mouth is if you're really serious about this. And I've heard some people say, I don't like that model because it may inhibit people from being able to exercise that opportunity. And the way that he framed it was, but this is also my time that I'm giving to you. And I've had plenty of people who decide that we've made an appointment. I've sent a follow-up email to say, hey, we have an appointment, next week, the day before, the day of, and nobody shows up. And then that could have been valuable time that they were spending with somebody else who really wanted that. So if I'm not mistaken, his model is he has like a deposit that he'll have, and it's not a lot of money, but he will then refund that if they do show up. And if not, then he, takes that little bit of money. And he's like, that's more for coaching at this point, because coaching is imparting more technical knowledge. It is taking the time to teach, actual skills to help people get X, Y, and Z. So I've heard the argument, we shouldn't be charging for X, Y, and Z, and I don't. But I also don't do I don't do more coaching publicly, I would say at this point. I do more of the mentorship. But like if Meron calls me up, she's called me up and been like, hey, I need help with this flow. Can you help me with it? I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But for everybody in the community who also sends those type of messages, it's like, okay, how serious are you about, this? And then you make the assessment. Is it really worth my time? And that may sound rude, but like we've said, time is this really precious asset, and you get 10 messages a day or, a week. You have to evaluate like which one of these is worth that amount of time and effort. Because usually when somebody's like, I need help with the flow or an app, it's not a 15-minute appointment. It's sometimes they come with you and they want you to help build the entire solution, or it leads to more questions. And sometimes folks haven't quite done their research. So I'd say that's more of like, that's almost like consulting, externally to what you do. So I limit that kind of time in the community myself. And if I can help find some resources, I'll point them there. More of like the one-on-one interactions where it's like, okay, how can we guide you to this career path, or what are you doing now? Where do you want to be? Kind of just doing that more of the guiding path is where I find mentorship is valuable. And where
I think teaching someone how to build a flow or something technical like that is definitely not classed as mentoring, is it? Is that someone getting your free time they could be paying a contractor for?
Yeah, and I get there are like new folks in the community who may not know where to find resources per se. So it depends, but you oftentimes get a lot of these kinds of requests. Or, I have friends who I work with and they say, yes, somebody came in my LinkedIn DMs and gave them a screenshot of all of their app and was like, I need to find this one error and I can't figure it out. I'm available for a chat now. We're like, whoa, we can't just go into people's inboxes and say, I need your time or I demand your time now. And I think some folks don't quite understand that, especially for, complete strangers, not even a hi, it's just, I need help. I'm available to chat right now. I got one of those messages a couple weeks ago from somebody. They're just like, I need help in Power Platform. And I was like, you want to give me a little bit more context as to what you need help with? And they're like, yeah, so I'm working in Power BI and I want to use this connector and this and this and this, and I'm available to chat right now. What is your email address? And I was like, okay, that's a little bit more forward. And I had to say I don't have the time to chat now, but what resources have you looked into, and can funnel a few things. And I was like, why don't you try this? And then, if it doesn't work, then you can come back. Or if it's an emergency, right, I can refer you to somebody who can help, but it might be a company or somebody who does independent consulting, because that can end up being a ton of time that you're taking in order to help somebody with their own work. And when you have your own, and, like I work in consulting, that is time, that is money at that point. So yeah, it's an interesting mix when you start to get people in your inbox and you've got just a very wide variety of people who need help and the way that they ask for it too. And yeah, it's been interesting for sure.
There's a good way to kind of answer those. I've had a few recently as well. Probably not as many as you, but I'm sure a good way I've found is to direct into the forums to say, hey,
Yes.
you're reaching out to me, and I can help you. I've got some skills. I'm sure the time is probably the issue, or it might be during the day, whatever else. But actually, if you share your issue on the forums, one, you've got lots of people who monitor the forums constantly, and two, that means that you share your problem and solution with a whole heap of other people now and in the future, that if they come across the same issue themselves, they can search on the forums, hey, here's someone else's question, here's someone else's answer, and actually you'll help sharing that problem.
Sure.
So as much as I always feel a bit guilty for palming people off, actually I think that's a better place to go and ask for help anyway, and the answer to your problem might already been answered X amount of years ago anyway, right? So
correct.
I feel like it's a good space to direct people if they're asking you directly for help with a solution. I don't know everything, and actually there's other people that might do and can help you in a different way, right?
We don't know the answers to everything, and this person needed help more with Power BI. I'm not a Power BI person, so I can't do that. And so instead of directing them to a person, I did direct them to the forums. But also what I like to do is, are you on Twitter? If you're on LinkedIn, why don't you post your problem? I can help amplify it, right? And I have people do that a lot on Twitter. They'll DM me or they'll tag me in a tweet and say, hey, can Azure, do you know anybody or can you help me with this? I retweet it and say, hey, do I have any people in, use the hashtags of whatever part of the platform that they're in. People will end up flocking to it and be like, have you tried this or this or this? And then it takes the load off of me to be the one to be like, let me go find a resource for you. But typically, directing them to forums, like what in Google has worked, and sometimes people are like, oh, I didn't even know I could Google my question. So you've got folks who are self-starters and like, I've tried all of these things. This hasn't quite worked. And other times people, they go directly to a person and be like, can you help me with this very specific problem? Even if you aren't like the person to maybe be able to answer that too. So yeah, I think that's a very beneficial thing to use. And I get that, especially if you're new, Microsoft Learn isn't always the easiest to navigate, or the documentation. And I mean, even myself as a professional, I don't know what I was looking for the other day, and I was looking for some information on a connector, and it took me a good 10 minutes of Googling the right keywords to find exactly what I needed. So I understand some of these things are buried. And if you don't know the language quite yet for things, it might be a little bit harder to find this. But for people who are coming with a very specific problem, I'm like, okay, let's see if we can find a solution that's close to that in the Power Users Forum. I think oftentimes people are also looking for, rather than reading the context around their issue, right? It may not be the Power Users Forum gives them the exact answer that they're looking for, but it gives them the kind of breakdown and the explanation to something very similar, but they look at it and see, this doesn't solve my problem. And so they might ignore that as well. I'm like, nope, sometimes you have to read around to see me like, oh, actually this matches, and I don't have this, I'm not using this exact connector, but actually this might work, just, the way that you would troubleshoot. So yeah, you just got a spectrum of people in where their journey is in development, and then are they self-sufficient? Are there somebody who just wants to be told what to do? Are there people who don't look for the resources themselves to begin with anyway, and you just kind of have a spectrum?
Yeah, it's a good point, that, because I think with mentoring, the difference there is like giving people the confidence and the capability to get out there and try things out, do it for yourself. And then, if they struggle with that, you can mentor them.
Yeah, even how do you do the Google searches?
Yeah, exactly. And lead it, it leads into coaching that. But yeah, certainly, I think just giving people confidence and reassurance that, if they try hard enough themselves, they will get the answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a mentee who wanted to, where she's from, Power BI is huge, data analytics is huge. Other parts of the platform up until more recently were unexplored, and people didn't quite understand why they might need an app or why they would use Automate. And so sometimes I come into these groups to be like, let's have a very simple case of why I would use this. And so she got really interested in PVA, or at least when it was PVA, now it's, custom Copilot. And her peers told her, you should just be doing what everybody else is doing. Why are you doing PVA? It's not useful. And she came to me and was like, what do you think? And I was like, do you enjoy PVA? She was like, yes, I do. I was like, then keep on going with it, and you're good at it, and build that capability. You don't have to follow what everybody else is doing. You still have that skill set. It's okay to explore something new. But for her, she was just kind of, multiple people had told her like, you don't want to do that. Like, why would you do that? But also they weren't exploring anything new either. So I want to encourage, stay curious, continue to do this, because now you can also help other people when you get to that point too, where you feel like, oh yeah, I've run into this issue, or I want to share my knowledge on this. That'll encourage other folks to gain more skills too. So very good points.
That's a lovely thing about this call, actually, that it can see from kind of your mentoring there, as your Meron is now mentoring people, and there's that kind of cycle. It's community, isn't it? That's what it's all about, I suppose. That you're kind of creating more and more skills to help the new people we're going to need in this sector, let's face it.
Absolutely. So Microsoft has the Power Up program, which is a newer program that they kind of started up last year, where they had 40,000 applicants that they're trying to help learn Power Platform. And it's, they're gaining more users by this, but I have people in my inbox saying, hey, I'm coming from Power Up and I kind of don't understand X, Y, and Z. So there is a total need. Like somebody mentioned that they had been rejected, like 2 years in a row for Power Up, just got in. So there is an absolute need for skills and guidance. And, Microsoft itself doesn't do the mentorship or the coaching piece, right? So the community has to fill in that way to help. So there is absolutely a need for that. And somebody at work was saying, you do a lot in the community. And so how do you make this sustainable? And I was like, you teach others and they take on a few people as well. And you kind of just have to build that capability in people that then they want to go out and do the same things. Like Meron runs the Power Platform, the Pathfinders Power Platform group, which is now extended into not only just teaching, like giving folks resources for Power Platform and funneling them into these community schools and the mentorship and the coaching, but she's also doing things like getting immigrants like social services resources. It goes beyond just that, wherever you take your mentorship journey, and everybody doesn't have to scale to that, but now we're building another generation of folks to help as well. So I know Meron's mentioned that, because we've had the conversation, because I was like, you have, at that time, she had 100 people in her program, which as one person is so many people. And, people are reaching out to you individually and whatnot. I was like, how can we split this off? Because she was hosting, training sessions at her home. And it's like, you still need time for yourself. And I know people are reaching out to get help on a specific thing. And she's like, okay, I think it's the time where I now have some of the more seasoned people, or, form study groups, or, just kind of group people together so they can help each other. And then as opposed to having 100 people reach out to you specifically, then it's, maybe the group comes up with a couple of questions to ask, or somebody may have the answer to it, or know the answer, can find it to help the group. It's kind of just spreading it out rather than trying to be the one central person to do everything.
Like a friendly pyramid sort of scheme.
It's a pyramid scheme. You're right. It's absolutely a pyramid scheme.
In the nicest possible way. There's something that I get asked quite a lot, actually, by people that maybe are coming from an end user background, that are trying to get into Power Platform as a career. They may have been tinkering around, and this is to anybody on the call that might be able to help. What resources, or people often struggle to show off their skill set, what they've achieved, if they've not been in a developer or consultant role with maybe one of the partners. Do you have any advice for people like that? Because this is the sort of approach I get. It's more, how can you help me get into a full-time Power Platform role? I've been doing a bit of Power Automate and I've built a Canvas app, but that might be it. How do they build? I know Natty has built a kind of case study that people can work on and show off their skills. Is there anything else you would suggest that I could give out as advice?
I was one of those people who didn't think I was ready to be in tech. And I had been automating things. I taught boot camps right at work and everything. And then I was teaching folks like Meron seeing them get into tech, and still for me, I was like, I don't know if that's me. I don't know if I have the skill set. I don't know what I was thinking. I think people taking their current professional skills and being able, let me reverse that. I'm going to say, I think the technical part is easy. I think it's the people skills, the life skills, depending on what role you're in, are going to be the ones that really carry you through. I can teach you how to build an app. I can teach you logic. I can teach you the foundations and the principles of, how to use the Power Platform. But I think learning how to speak to people. So if you end up in a project management role or a consulting role, or any of those, are still going to be super important. Their communication skills, highlighting those type of skills from their previous industry are super important too. When it comes to building technical skills, I started with building things for personal productivity at work. And then it scaled to what are some other things that would be helpful to my department. And it doesn't have to be an end-to-end, business process at this point. I think the first flow that I created was a copy file and replace file flow for my department, because we had a safety team that, when I worked in manufacturing, had a PowerPoint slide on a safety topic that needed to be presented to every department every week. And my team didn't always have the file, because the safety team would have it edited on Fridays, but sometimes they would send it out on Monday afternoon, but we already had our department meeting on Monday morning, So in my mind, I was like, well, why don't we try to automate whatever the most current file is, just drop it into Teams. It'll be there when we present on Monday mornings. And it was just something as simple as that saved time, where I tell people, like, don't think it has to be something big and grandiose. What are the things that you're currently doing that are a little bit of a pain point, or that you could reduce? If it's 5 steps, what can you do to make that 4? So I like to say build capability in that way, but also to think of what are the things that you currently do in your role that aren't necessarily technical, that are applicable across multiple, things. Communication is always a good one, being very clear in what you're saying. Organization, because we do a lot with logic and documentation and whatnot. Build those skills. If you need to take like a Coursera class on technical writing, that might actually help you if you end up having to do things like documentation. And exploring what other people are doing online. So if you have a favorite blog that you follow by somebody, see if what elements that they're using in their, in their blog and their skill writing, to say, how can I apply those types of things to what I'm doing now? So just kind of I hate to use the word spectrum again, but what are the skills that you need? Where do you sit on the communication piece? How can you be a better communicator? Are you organized? How do you become better organized? Project management, maybe you should be documenting all the steps that you're using, or the things that you're using if you needed to hand off your solution, if you're not doing that now. So just giving that and having a little bit of a portfolio of what you want. I say that's probably helped me the most, is having a public portfolio. And that can be your blog, that can be making some videos. And it doesn't have to be public either, but you could be keeping a OneDrive folder of things that you've been working on, screenshots, explanation as to what you've done. And then when you have the opportunity to interview, you can send that, to a prospective employer. But when I first got into consulting last year, a Microsoft partner had reached out to me and said, we've seen your work online, let's chat. And to me, it didn't occur that was also a way to, like, people were looking at that, right? When they Google your name, what comes up? Do you keep a Git repository of things that you've worked on? So just a little bit of visibility, a little bit of those life skills, a little bit of those technical skills to be kind of a well-rounded individual. And I don't know if that's too much of advice or what you were looking for, but those are the things that I found that have helped even like mentees get roles now, is helping them to build each of those capabilities.
Yeah, no, it's really helpful. I mean, yeah, it's something that I get asked quite a lot by people that might not be logging those little problems that they're solving day to day, and the communication skills, particularly with the enablement folks. So if you speak to Simon Owen or Angeliki, the people that have done sessions recently on these sort of empowerment and enablement pieces, they really talk about those communication skills. And it's interesting you bring up sort of Git repositories, because that tends to be more in the .NET world that people put those on their CVs. But but in Power Platform, you've got to have communication skills. It's client facing, isn't it? So often. So yeah, no, it is helpful. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. And Simon actually, so speaking of Simon, so Simon Owen, I worked with him and we did Power Platform, like he was doing Power Platform adoption at the first company where I discovered Power Platform. And he was the one who built this confidence
Oh, wow.
for me. So he was
You're
like
in
my
his
first
tribe.
mentor. Yeah. I started posting things in our internal Facebook group on Power Automate because everything was focused on Power BI and Power Apps. And I was automating things and just sticking, like four slide PowerPoints in there on how to automate planner tasks with a due date, or how to assign people to a planner task. And he was like, do more of this. And when people had questions about Power Automate, he would say, hey, you need to talk to Azure, she can probably help you figure this out. And if it was a question, I've done this bit, like let's automate the planner task, let's add a due date, somebody might come in and say, well, how do I can I add an attachment to this? And I'd be like, let's find out together. And then we'd learn together. So that kind of started my bit, into the community and whatnot, because Simon was the one who was just like, keep doing this, do it a little bit more.
So you're
and
like
then,
a real life version of one of his drawings
yeah, really. And of course I didn't know what was going on. I just thought this was fun. I never thought it would take me, really anywhere. I never saw myself leaving pharma, but it's been a really, really great adventure, because now it's been 4 years since I started in Power Platform, and then my life looks completely different from where it was, at the time, just because he was like, hey, do more of this. Hey, we're going to teach we want to do a boot camp for the company. Would you be interested in leading, the automate section of this? And I was like, I've been working in this for 6 months. Why do you want me to help with this? And he's like, you've done a lot. Why don't you teach people what you've learned? And at the time, there weren't as many resources around for automate. So I cobbled together what I thought were the important bits and pieces for people to learn, and then taught that. And one of my, who's also a friend of ours, her name is Laura Graham Brown. She's in the community. She was like, that's more than I would have taught beginners in a boot camp. But these are the foundational principles that people need to understand about this, and helped them, with their capability. And students came back and said, yeah, I've been working in Automate, but didn't realize that I needed to know this was the structure of my payload, or how to read these elements, or, so teaching others helps you get to be better as well. And you learn more, especially if you don't know what the answer is. It's that curiosity piece that keeps you going to say, I'll figure this out. And that can also help somebody else. So just like somebody was saying on the call before, like, yeah, the Power Users forums is a great place to direct people, or answering questions on there too is also really helpful to help you build your skills as you're, looking for problems to solve. I know with my, typically new grads or students, they've not worked in a business before, so they might not be able to come up with, use cases to make themselves. So when you have those folks, then it's like, well, if I don't have a business, if I don't have this, like, how do I come up with ideas? And I'm like perusing the forums, or looking up, even Googling, like, how does a business operate, maybe like an accounting process, and then trying to automate a few things there, or building an app, or getting just kind of creative in the way you learn. Really helps. But I had at least the advantage of working for a company where I was like, oh, I could automate that, or make an app for that, or, so that came, I think that's not a disconnect, but just a difference in where you are, and how do you get started learning too. So that was a bit of a tangent. I'm sorry.
No, it's interesting, because I say to sort of trainees here, because we work in tech, but we're not technical. So, I remember when I started 6 years ago, I was terrified of speaking to developers, because I thought they're going to know. They know I don't know. But then by the end of week 1, the end of week 2, I was talking to people at home about what I was doing at work, and I was like, oh no, I do know stuff. And
you know something, know more than you think you do.
You do. And I don't think you realize that until you say it out loud, and you train somebody else, and you can solve a problem with them, and you go, oh, well, I didn't know I knew that. Or I certainly, that's the way my mind works. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a good point.
I agree. Meron, any comments? Sorry, I took over that for a bit. Didn't mean to.
Oh no, that's brilliant points you mentioned. All of them are awesome.
That has been really great. There's so many people out there that are looking for mentors, and I know you're probably, you know, inundated with messages as well, like you say. So it's interesting to, I think the points I'd take away from this, if people are looking to get into community, not sure how to get a mentor, that what I will take away from this is that point of what have you done already? You know, what content have you looked at? Whose blogs are you reading? You know, what Microsoft
Sometimes they don't know either, right? So
yeah.
I think it's still the reaching out part to ask is key. If you don't know where to go, asking, and then we can kind of drill down to say like, oh, okay, maybe we just need to go to Google for this one, or have you checked this?
Yeah.
But I, you know, sometimes it is somebody's like, I work in admin, I want to go more towards project management or you know, business development, but do you know anybody is also a really good thing, because I don't work in business development, and that's, you know, the focal point we see usually with Power Platform is you work in admin and governance or development usually, right? Or admin, less of, but we still have roles that are important that are needed to support these too. So I feel like a lot of my job these days is making connections and asking colleagues, you know, who aren't visible in the community, to say, would you mind having a 30-minute chat with this person? You know, what tools have you found useful for, you know, working on your PMO certifications? Because I don't know the answer. So I always still encourage people, like, reach out. It doesn't mean that the person that you're reaching out to is going to be available, but they should be able to direct you in some sort of way to say, you know what, why don't I ask somebody else? And that's what I do these days. Is I go into a couple of group chats or reach out to somebody and say, do you have the capacity to take on someone, or can you speak to them for half an hour? And they may also be able to refer somebody else too. So kind of like using this network helps, because if you don't know the direction, you don't know the direction. And yeah, some of it, if it's technical, maybe Google is a good start, but you know, if you want to get into a certain role, that isn't there. I don't think we really have any online that I've seen thus far, and I'm happy to be corrected, but we don't really have like a pathway to this position or a pathway to this role, or how do I get into consulting, or how do I get into admin inside my business? So
I don't think there is one, is there? Because most people are career switches, and I was saying this to my boss here. I was like, they're all career switches in this space, so no one has that. If you look at a .NET Pro Code developer, they've probably done a comp science degree, gone in as a graduate, junior.
Correct.
That is not the case in this space. So it makes it very difficult for me to price a candidate. You know, someone's like, what should I be earning? I can't say, you know, straight off.
Don't know either. Let's be very honest here.
I don't know, you know. But yeah, it is. People have different backgrounds and therefore different skills, but it makes for really interesting characters. And maybe that's what makes such a great community, that people have got experiences to bring.
Right. Like Meron's got business experience. She ran a business.
Yeah.
That's still incredibly important, developer or not, because you might work with a client that has who is, you know, running a small to medium business. I've worked with small pharma companies. I've worked with globally known pharma companies, and I didn't think that I would ever use that knowledge again. Last year, I got sent on business trips to work with a pharma client because I could translate the language between a Dynamics team and the client. And once I could say, oh yeah, do you have to follow this regulation, or is this governed by an SOP, or, you know, how are you doing your inventory process if you're working from SAP on-prem and you're converting to Dynamics? And the group that I was working with said, hey, this really gave us instant credibility to have somebody who's knowledgeable, you know, in this field. So coming from a different background doesn't make you any less valuable. I think it makes you also equally as valuable, because you can speak to these different elements. I've worked in manufacturing. I've worked in supply chain for manufacturing, vendor management, change management. So all of those elements and skills still come into play when you're transitioning. Yeah, it really does. And I didn't recognize that until I left, and I was like, oh, I'll never use this knowledge again. And
but can you imagine, Azure, if they try to find that person? Okay, we need someone to bridge this knowledge gap between pharma and Dynamics. It would cost them a fortune to hire someone in, and probably been difficult to find. So it's it's good to bring those different experiences.
Yeah, so you don't just have to hire devs. Like, look at their background. We've got people who've worked in accounting, manufacturing, business owners, everything. It's all useful still.
It's cool, full of a lot of characters as well, isn't it? So interesting. So how have you guys found your VRT today? Is it kind of what you expected?
Yeah, it's, once we kind of got the groove. I don't know if Meron and I we've done presentations, like official presentations about mentorship, and then more having this free form conversation, kind of a live podcast thing. That's different for us. So once we got comfortable with it, yeah.
People do it in different formats. John comes to a few of these events. So we had last week a very kind of technical event about publishing apps in AppSource, and I can't lie, I didn't know much about what was going on. But I got great, Keith as well, Keith Atherton, sent me a message. He was like, that was brilliant. And I was like, well, thank you for telling me that, because
got different audiences.
Yeah, so they're all very different. Some present, some don't, but these things all started as a round table back in COVID lockdowns, and it was just like this, just this really open conversation that people can learn from, and yeah, John, you're a mentor, within your consultancy, and I know it'll be useful to some people that will watch this back, not knowing quite how to find somebody that can support them in that specific area that they need as well.
Good. I'm glad. Hope that'll be
really good.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
Really good.
I'm always happy to trade knowledge too with other folks who are doing it in this space too, because we run into all sorts of scenarios with the kind of people that we're working with. So it's always helpful to have that network of folks too, who will be like, I've dealt with this before. Here's my advice on it, or here's how it shaked out.
John knows everything about everything, don't you, John?
No, that's why I joined these.
He doesn't. I'm joking, but he's a knowledgeable guy for sure. Oh no, thank you for making the time. This is recorded, so we'll get it all kind of tidied up and ready, posted on our website on the events page tomorrow. I can send you guys the link as well, so that you can do what you want with it. If there are any little bits that you want kind of snipping out, we do 1-minute snippets that we post out on socials. But if there's a bit that you'd like to use to promote the Power Platform School or any of the not-for-profit organisations that you've got, and you want us to snip it a little bit out, just let me know, and I can get the marketing guys to do that for you.
Awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Really, I want to say thank you for you and John and Azure for allowing me to be here, but also for the Microsoft community. Honestly, it's so easy to ignore when somebody was in need, right? Always when somebody has a name or a title, everybody will be coming in to say, hey, I helped that person to be where it is, or to say, I know him, I know her. But when somebody's really down, when needs help, to send help, or to say, hey, I got your back. What do you need? For me to get help from Kati Moya, she was the first one. She was a senior. She's a senior program manager who runs Women's IT Pros call in Microsoft. Really, she's a pioneer. She's one of the first one I reached out, and she showed me really how to be a leader. She's really a true leader. For me, the Microsoft community is a place where you can really grow as a person and as a professional. It's not something I can, how can I say? Just look at me. I honestly, as an immigrant, I came on my own. But today I can reach out to anybody, whether it's in England to Alex Juara, Chris, here, AJ, Will, Azure, Chris, in Sweden to Simon Binder, in Germany, and Thomas. I can name in Australia, Roshan. I can name anyone I want. And I know with a blink of an eye, they will be here to help me out, virtually or physically. Who can call like this to their mentor? So I can't thank you enough, the Microsoft community. I don't know what kind of secret sauce you are eating or drinking. I'm profoundly grateful because this growth mindset, whatever you call it, honestly, the paid forward is really working. So keep it up, keep empowering people. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm a living example. So mentorship really changed people. The power of mentorship really here. So keep working hard, keep mentoring, because it's really changed people's life, and I'm the living proof. So thank you. I just want to say thank you.
Bless you. And you're paying it forward as well. So good for
Right?
you.
Yeah, you have to give yourself more credit too. You've got a whole nonprofit now centered around this and helping other people transform their lives. And I think it's so Meron and I live about an hour from each other. We met for the first time in person about a year ago. And now we get to see each other at, the local Microsoft events, at the offices and whatnot. And she also brings folks from the area as well to said events. So it's really cool to be able to meet them in person too. And not just a face on a screen these days, but she's doing incredible work to help people also get the same skills, and paying it forward really does. It's big. It's really big. And I think that's really what keeps the community going. So.
The love I receive, I should be giving back, because otherwise I'll be poop. Thank you so much,
Sarah, for your
Sarah.
time.
Thank you,
Yeah,
John.
thank you for the
Thank
opportunity.
Thank you, all of you, for coming. And nice to see you again, John. But thanks, Meron and Azure. It's been a great session. I'll be in touch.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.